everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Erin, and for today's video we are going to be doing day 5 of the 13 days of Halloween. So for today's video I decided to deep dive back into Reddit, but this time I'm going into the Paranormal subreddit. So I decided that I would read some people's paranormal experiences that they've shared on Reddit. Now I have no way of knowing obviously if these stories are true or not, but let me know what you think of each of them down in the comments below. Okay, so what I did for this is I went into the subreddit itself and I have organized them. I chose top posts and then I went by all time. So some of these may be older. I will have each one linked down below just like I do in any of my other stories that I read from Reddit. So obviously these are not my stories. I'm not taking credit for them, and I will name each author as long as I can pronounce what their username is. So this first one is labeled, "I watch security cameras for a living and I saw something that sent chills down my spine." And this is by the user I guess it's X New Yorker maybe, XNYR21. So I saw this about 4 years ago at work and it creeped me out. I work for a digital surveillance company that runs the eye in the sky for thousands of restaurants, bars, and gas stations across the US. From time to time we get calls for investigations to look into robberies, theft, etc. So one day we get a call from a popular fast food chain located in the heart of Detroit. They say an employee OD'd by the dumpster and they needed us to get some answers on the situation. First, basically, what happened and how long was he there? The next question is where it starts to get weird. See, the dumpster had a brick wall around it. It had 2 entrances to the dumpster. A gate you had to pass when you walked out the back door, and the big gates where the garbage truck has access to the dumpster to empty it out. They claim those big gates were always open, and the small gate by the back door was locked from the inside. Nobody ever used that smaller gate. The weird thing was, when the body was found, an employee walked out. The gate that was never open was indeed open, and the body was sitting there on full display. So their next question was, who opened the gate? So we download the footage. One night the employee goes out, throws out the trash, and you can kind of see him through the locked gate that was never open. It was see-through, but very difficult to see through. The way the camera was angled, you could kind of see over the top also. He injects himself, slumps over, and kneels over dead behind the dumpster. He was out there for 2.5 days. No employees ever come to look for him. It's pouring rain both days. For 2 days, employees come and go, taking out the trash and not seeing him. Then on the 3rd day in the morning, sunshine. Clear day. The gate just slowly opens by itself. Nobody comes, nobody goes. The gate just opens by itself, and the body is sitting there in the same position it was 2.5 days earlier. I literally felt chills down my spine. To this day, I can't explain it without thinking it was paranormal. Anyway, a couple hours later, employee walks out with a trash bag, sees the body, freaks out, and calls the police. I didn't write it, but we basically had to write a report on how the gate apparently opened itself. So that's interesting. Obviously, there could have been a myriad of reasons for the gate opening up by itself, but definitely sounds like a creepy story. So this next one is called "A Middle of the Night Wrong Number Phone Call May Have Saved My Daughter's Life. Guardian Angel." And this one is by Honeymead. I realize this could be one hell of a coincidence, but it's rare to get a phone call at 3 a.m., especially a wrong number. My daughter was a newborn and I was a sleep-deprived mom. The phone rang at 3 a.m. and woke up my husband and I. He got up to answer it, and as he left the room I felt something under me. I was laying across my baby. I must have taken her to bed to feed and fell asleep. It is exactly what parents are warned about, and I feel awful that I made this mistake. My daughter was fine. I must have only just rolled onto her, and my husband returned to the bedroom saying it was someone speaking in a language he did not understand. We were very shaken up, and I took precautions to ensure it never happened again. My daughter is 18 and likes to think she has a guardian angel who saved her that night. That one's definitely an interesting one as well. This next one is called "Daughter's Imaginary Friend May Not Be So Imaginary After All," and this one is by Hoof_Hearted. My daughter Madison always had imaginary friends. They were all in pairs. There was Dana and Steve, Fraga and Kinga, and boyfriend and girlfriend. Then one day she told me, at around age 3, she's now 15, about Kellum, that played with her. I thought it was odd that this imaginary friend was flying solo, but I played along and asked if Kellum was her age. She told me Kellum wasn't a kid, that he was a grown-up and was tall like her daddy and wore brown pants and a yellow shirt. I still thought we were talking about someone from her imagination, so I didn't dwell on it, until one day she started singing a song I had never heard before. Daisy, Daisy, give me your answer due. I'm half crazy, all the love of you. Then she'd mumble a few words and pick back up with bicycle built for two. This went on for a few days, and I assumed she had heard it from her babysitter, as she didn't go to daycare, and that's the only person who interacted with her at length outside of the immediate family. So I asked the babysitter what the actual lyrics were so I could help her sing it better. Babysitter tells me she thought my husband and I taught her the song because she didn't know it either. I then asked my daughter where she'd heard the song from, and she tells me Kellen taught it to me. He sings it to his baby. This gives me the creeps, but I thought it best just to chalk it up to something she'd heard on television rather than face what I was actually thinking. Eventually, Kellum faded away and she stopped singing the song. She grew out of her imaginary friend phase, and we never brought up Kellum again. Fast forward about 5 years ago. I'm telling the story to a coworker who recognized the song as an old Nat King Cole tune called Bicycle Built for Two. It was popular way back in the earliest 20th century. That prompted us to start looking on Ancestry.com at my property address history. I started following rabbit holes and found out that in the 40s, the Beasley family bought the property adjacent to ours and ran a small dairy farm on it until it was sold in the 90s. The deeded owner at the time it was purchased in 1941 was Callum Beasley. Callum was the father of 5 children. His youngest died at age 3. Her name was Madeline. That's definitely a creepy one. Especially when you hear, like, a little kid talking about their imaginary friend that's an older person and is now living in your home. Okay, so this will be the second to last one that I read. This next one is called I'll Never Go Hunting Again, and apparently this person has deleted their Reddit because the username is deleted. I'm a bow hunter and I like to still hunt, which is when you dress in full camo and walk through the woods rather than sit in a tree stand. Last October, I was coming down a hill into a marshy area. It was kinda late, and enough so that the side of the mountain was covered in shadows. I live in Pennsylvania where our mountains are completely covered in trees, and it gets dark fast. When I got to the bottom of the hill, I noticed that it was completely silent, no sounds at all, and I felt the hairs stand on my arms. But I've been creeped out before in the woods, so it wasn't too big of a deal. I kept on. I've been hunting in this general area before, but I've never went down this hill. I continued creeping through the woods. Mind you, I'm walking very slow, so you can barely hear my footsteps, because deer are hard to sneak up on. Then I hear a voice call out for me from behind in a thicket of small trees. It says, "Help," and then it has my name in brackets. "Come over here, I'm in trouble, help." And I swear to God it was my brother's voice. But my brother lives in Nevada, so it couldn't be my brother, and it said my name. It only took me a second to realize something wasn't right, and when I did, I ran faster than I ever have in my life. Only my dad knew where I was hunting that day, and the area is huge. No one would have found me there, and he is too old to have played any tricks on me. But something out there knew my name, and it sounded just like my brother. I don't know what the hell that was, but I don't think I'll ever be going back in the woods again. Maybe I'll move to the desert with my brother, where at least I can see everything around me. That one's definitely a creepy one. Even creepier since we live near a giant forest, and it does get dark in forests pretty darn quick, and there are definitely some creepy sounds there. Okay, so this is again written by a deleted user, and this one is called I Cannot Find Anything Like This, and I figured we'd end it out on a rather long one. In 2008, I was 19 and deployed in Afghanistan. I was at a small post in the southern area of the country. It was very mountainous and not very populated. We had men who weren't in uniform coming in and out several times a week, never staying for more than 2 days. We were all pretty positive they were special forces of some sort, or maybe CIA contractors. They didn't have much interaction with any of us, pretty much ever. They stayed in their groups. There were a lot of rumors going around that they were doing some psychological warfare things, like ambushing and killing all but one in the dark, butchering corpses and leaving them in front of suspected villagers, burning things down, just, crazy things to mess with people. Well, about my 3rd week at this posting, we were told in the morning they wanted us to check in on a village not too far from us. They have been complaining about us killing goats and skinning them, which really wasn't all that uncommon. We had complained all the time to try to get money and other things from us in repayment. Then we had a report of a patrol in the area seeing a bunch of women and children carrying a lot of things rushing away from the area. Kind of suspicious activity. The next morning we set out before the sun was all the way up. The village was a little less than an hour drive from us. The whole area was pretty flat in a valley most of the way there, but about 2 kilometers from the village you have to take a small dirt single-track road up the mountain. The entire village was at the top of a small mountain, but in like a dog bowl. It was just maybe a dozen small walled-off houses and sheds. No more than 40 people lived there. Well, as we split up and approached the village, our comms freaked out. All we heard was static. But 4 of us heard voices. They all said it was like 100 people were talking all at once and you could hear it, but couldn't make out what was being said. That lasted for about a minute. The other group radioed us and said that 3 of 6 of them had heard clinking metal and a harsh, loud scream, a wet, gurgling scream. Then mid-scream it just cut off and went silent. We radioed back and reported what happened. We were told to continue on. Our radios are encrypted. There was next to no way anyone could have gotten into them. Not even 5 minutes later it happened again, but this time to more than half of us. We heard people talking while breathing heavily like they were running. So many voices all at once. I had to rip my headset and helmet off like many of the others. It was bad. We were out in the open, all in a panic. We reported it again, but one guy said he heard what was kind of like Farsi, Persian. Another said kind of like Latin, and I swear what I heard was in Russian. We were told it might just be interference, switch channels, and keep on task. At this point we were maybe 30 meters from the entrance to the village. It's a pretty big open area on this mountain. Not much to hide behind besides the buildings. Someone noticed a thin blood trail leading into the village. We took note and continued on. When we stepped into the village, we saw a puddle of dried, brown, blackish blood. Before we could even register what we saw, 3 military-aged men stepped out and opened fire at us. We all dove for cover. I ran behind this 1.5 meter high wall surrounding a small building. As soon as I dropped to my ass, a man stepped out of the building and shot at me. I panicked. This was my first time being shot at. I shot at him at least 8 times, 2 of which smacked him in the chest. Someone from the other side of the wall in the building was firing at me, so I ran to hide beside the building the man just came out of. I took cover next to the man, listening to his gurgling, heavy last breaths. After all was said and done, we had reinforcements arrive. We put down 8 men and wounded 2 more. Nothing on our side. While everyone was taking the required pictures and whatnot, an army patrol came by with 4 of the women from the village. They said they found them hiding in a nearby town begging for help. They had to pretty much carry the women back. They refused to return. We split the women up and began to question them. They admitted the men were gathering and getting things together to attack a patrol. Someone had promised them a great reward. But they were crying, all terrified to be back. Our interpreter asked what had them so shaken. Is it because of the fight? They said the morning before the sun was coming up, they saw what looked like a bloody man walking up. Some of the women went to try and give aid when they stopped and screamed. As the man walked closer, he was naked from head to toe, no hair and no skin. Each step looked like his knees would buckle and collapse. He had no eyes and no muscles around his jaw. His head just swung around loose like nothing rigid to hold it up as he walked by. They said he was slow and jerky. They could hear him breathing. It was wet and heavy like he was drowning. The men, hearing the women scream and run, grabbed some weapons. Some were muskets and some tools. As he walked closer, they saw his belly was slit and things were just swinging from his gut. The men began to fire at him. The thing didn't notice, didn't stop, didn't even flinch, and chunks of him were ripped off. He finally stopped when the men were reloaded and opened his arms like he was going to hug someone and screamed. Screamed so loud they had to cry. The men closest to him began to bleed from the eyes and ears and finally collapsed. The next thing they knew, he was gone, just vanished in a light red mist. The men who fell were gone too, not a trace, no footprints or anything, just the train of blood into the village. We all kind of looked at each other like that was bullcrap, no way. We kind of ignored it and continued with the documenting and cleaning up. After several hours we were leaving, I was in front with 6 other men. We were all talking about the radio thing when one of us just stopped and yelled for us to drop. We listened and spread out, dropping low. The area is wide open and empty. There is nothing to hide behind. But there in the middle of the dirt track was a horse with its legs cut off, flush at the joints, with its head twisted upside down. Something was sticking out of its belly, and it had something carved into its skin. We thought it was an IED, so we went through the standard processes and cleared the area. When we were sure all was well, we finally approached it. It has a 1-meter long shard of broken mirror stuck in its side, Arabic letters carved into it. The half of the horse facing away from us was skinned, so cleanly there wasn't a drop of blood or a cut in the meat. We asked our interpreter what the Arabic word said, and he said it isn't Arabic, but kinda like Farsi, but not at the same time. He said he thought it said, "Look, look, don't look." We were all freaked out. We went back and recorded everything. Our CO listened to the entire story, and after a long silence that felt like a half an hour said, "It was nothing. Exhaustion and stress from your first engagement. Be careful who you tell. People will begin to question your mental fitness." Later, when some of us went to shower, there was yelling. The guys who were out there with us said they saw their own faces had no skin in the mirror. We calmed them down and moved them out so we could shower. I was the first one done and went to shave when I saw a red skinless person in the corner of the mirror. That was 11 years ago yesterday. I still sometimes see him in the mirror. Hell, in my bathroom I don't even have a mirror at all. I go to a barber once a week to shave me. The last time I shaved myself, my daughter was in watching me when I saw the man in the corner of my right eye next to her. She saw him in the mirror too and ran off screaming. What makes all this crazy is in that deployment, 3 of us from that day were killed in an IED. 2 were critically injured in another. Our interpreter was killed with his family in his home. 4 killed themselves within 3 years of returning home. That's 8 dead and 2 injured, just like the villagers. I've only told maybe a dozen people about this. Only 1 or 2 believed me. I know the area had a lot of history, like the Russians had a base where we had ours in the 80s. Some say that Alexander the Great marched his army in that valley too. I don't know what to think of it. I need to know more about it. It's been bugging me for years. So that last one was definitely a creepy one. I've heard of some other service members who have had paranormal experiences while being deployed in various places around the world. There's definitely a lot of weird energy in places where there's fighting and stuff going on, so it almost sounds to me kind of like, not voodoo-ish, but some kind of ritual went on to have the horse like that. I mean, obviously, if the story's true, it kind of sounds true to me, so, I mean, I have no reason not to believe the person that posted it. But that last one was definitely the creepiest out of the bunch. Alright guys, so what did you think of these stories? Did you think they were creepy? Do you think they're true? Let me know down in the comments below. But that's it for this video, guys. If you liked it, please give me a big old thumbs up. Make sure you hit that subscribe button down below and the notification bell so you know when I upload my videos. I am posting videos every day until Halloween. Alright guys, I'll see you in my next one. Bye!